The finale of Better Call Saul Season 6 is arriving next week, and after episode 12, we all have questions surrounding how this show will come to an end. The misery has only just begun for Gene and Kim Wexler, and I think we're about to get a final episode that highlights the psychological collapse of Saul and the sadness in the truth that Kim appears to be letting out. In this video, I'm going to be discussing my general predictions, theories, and giving my thoughts on the trailer promo for Better Call Saul Season 6 Episode 13. The promo trailer will be linked in the description if you haven't seen it already. But before I get into it, if you want to see more videos on the ending of Better Call Saul, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. Also, feel free to check me out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram at Cortex Videos, which is all linked in the description below. But without further ado, let's dive into my predictions for the Better Call Saul Season 6 finale. So after the end of episode 12, we got the last straw in Gene's demise following the new cons that he'd been pulling off. And with Kim telling the truth to Howard's wife and telling Jimmy that he should hand himself in, it seems like this finale will be one of misery, heartbreak, and melancholy. The title of episode 13 is Saul Gone, which could refer to many things surrounding the fate of Gene and the identity of Saul Goodman. It could mean that Saul is literally gone and put in jail, or it could even mean that Gene changes for the better and abandons the Saul Goodman persona, maybe telling the truth in the process. There's many different ways it can go, but again, I think we're going to get a final episode we haven't had in the Breaking Bad universe, and that is one which is darker and more reflective than we've ever had before. Sure, the final episode of Breaking Bad and the El Camino film had dark and emotional moments, but the stories ended with the main character getting away with it in their own fitting ways. Walt died doing what he enjoyed and wasn't caught. Jesse got his freedom in Alaska with the chance of a new life. But Better Call Saul, and in particular Season 6, is painting the picture of a story that's doomed to end in much more despair. It's always focused on that idea of it all being fun and games until it's all over. And the title of course embodies that statement too. So when it comes to everything we've seen and the material released for this final episode, what might we see unfold? Well, I'm going to first start with the promo trailer for episode 13, and I think it's key to keep in mind that most of the teasers released for this season have been big misdirects in some way, shape or form, even if they are linked into the episode's events. So how do I think this links into the finale? Well, the teaser has Jimmy reciting the words to get extracted by Ed the vacuum guy, and I'm going to predict that I think it will actually link into the opening section of this episode, and in particular, I think it will involve a final flashback to Breaking Bad. I'm predicting that it's going to be an opening scene with Jimmy at his mansion for the last time before it's raided at the start of Season 6. I think he's going to be in a state of panic, desperately grabbing everything he needs, and also trying to memorize his lines in preparation for when he actually calls Ed's number during the flashback scene in his office we saw in a previous season. I think he'll also reflect on his time with Kim once he picks up that Zafiro Anejo bottle top that we saw lying in the road at the beginning of the season. And maybe during this opening we'll also get the last scene with Walter White that Bryan Cranston said would be featured, and I think an opening like this could really highlight the collapse of Saul during that Granite State episode, and maybe even show the difference that we're going to see between his and Heisenberg's ending, which I was touching on before. I think we could get an opening like this that would really finish off the events that we've been seeing from the Breaking Bad timeline, and it would again add to the storytelling going on in Gene's time period, which follows. And speaking of the Gene stuff, I think we're going to cut to that and see the reverse scenario play out, this time with there being no escape. I think he'll once again be panicking, make a quick stop at his house and grab everything he needs, such as the diamonds and belongings he can take. I think Jimmy will ring Ed's number again, and this time we'll find out that either the place is out of business, Ed's retired, or his character has died in the show. Of course, the actor who plays Ed was the legendary Robert Forster, and he died a few years ago, with El Camino being his last true performance, but maybe they'll take the more respectable option of him being retired or him being out of business. So what could happen next if this was a likely outcome? Well, I think in the middle part of this episode, it will truly stress on how he's now completely alone. Just like the very opening episode and Gene's flashbacks that we saw towards the start of the show, that colour of Saul Goodman was the only thing to keep him going after Kim walked out. And I think with the chances of that completely gone, the Saul Gone of the title, if you will, he will be back to being completely alone, and he can't turn to another con, he can't escape this situation of now being on the run, and again, Kim is letting the truth out and she's not coming back to him. I think because Marion called the police on him in Nebraska, he'll realise that going back to Albuquerque is something they wouldn't expect given the current circumstances, or for this current moment in the episode. And it would again reflect to him picking up that bottle top in the opening flashback of the episode, returning to Kim because he's completely alone. It would make sense that this show ends in the place where the whole universe started, and I think with Gene understanding that they wouldn't expect him to be there after what happened in episode 12, then I could see him going back to ABQ and using this one final chance to speak with Kim when they meet. We've wanted to see them meet up with each other again, and I predict it will be the most emotional and decisive scene in the entire show. I think it will truly stress on the idea that he is destined to collapse as Saul Goodman, with Kim not being in his life, and on the reverse to that, I think it will show that Kim is truly past being that person, even if she does tell him that she does truly love and care about him. I think Gene will tell her that he will never change and that Saul is a part of him and always has been. It's something Chuck knew, it's something Howard knew, and it's something that Kim deep down knew. She had so much fun being around him until the brutal consequences came. And in the process, I think the outcome is one that sticks to this idea of a psychologically damaging ending that Ray Seahorn said we'd see unfold. A man who doesn't change and remains the criminal he's essentially always been. Yes, things got worse and people eventually died, but he's never changed. And now he's doomed to be alone forever and eventually face the consequences. So when it comes to my predictions of the ending, I think Gene will now leave and tell Kim that he's going back to being Saul Goodman. I think it will end with him going back to his office and sitting down in the ruins of the bleak environment of his previous empire, alone and ready for the eventual barge through the door that we all expect. In the reverse to the many times we've seen him sat there being smug and embracing that persona, he's now sat there completely alone and understanding that Saul is completely gone. It would reflect those earlier posters from previous seasons and also the title of this final episode. And we'd be left to presume that the cops found him there or someone reported him being there on his way to the office. But again, that's not the true point of the ending. The true point of this would be to symbolize the complete mental deconstruction of this persona and then the doom he was always heading to. Still, he would be able to go out with an understanding that Saul Goodman is his true identity and that he did have those fun and games while it lasted. I think it would again relate to the description that Ray spoke about, and it would follow the downfall that we were always going to see. And with Kim owning up and telling the truth, we get the clear moral differences between her and Jimmy in this ending. He goes out refusing not to be anyone but Saul, and she goes out being completely truthful. Bob Odenkirk described this ending the other day in 3 words, with those words being hard, won, and truth. I think the hard part is relating to Jimmy's struggle to get away. I think the one part is relating to him being alone as Saul and the episode's focus on that. And I think truth could be relating to Kim's final outlook and change in this finale. So that's my prediction on how I could briefly see things going down. It is incredibly hard to predict things in this final episode, and I know that last week I got a lot of predictions right about what we did see then, so I thought I'd have a go at guessing what might happen in the finale. I did also say in that video that I could see Jimmy being in a courtroom again come the final episode and eventually going to jail. And while a lot of fans are currently predicting that this will be the likely outcome, in the last few days I keep coming back to that Nippy episode in which Gene says to the security man from Parks and Rec that he's got no one. He says he has no wife, no kids, no friends, and essentially pours his heart out, all while doing so to pull off another con. I think that is a big hint to the more psychological ending they might go for, and that's why I'm now predicting that it's going to end with him alone in his office, poised to believe in Saul Goodman forever, even if it's all burnt to the ground and he can't be that person anymore. And he'd of course still be arrested, we just wouldn't see that on screen because the focus would be on him being completely alone. I think it would be the more nuanced ending that still completes his journey and tells us where he was always going to end up, whether that be mentally or physically in actually going to jail. The show starts with him trying to fit in and play the role of Gene Takovic at a Cinnabon, but he eventually returns to his old Saul Goodman ways and stages more cons. He would end staying true to being Saul Goodman, but with him now poised to being arrested and alone, Saul Goodman is completely gone. So that's what I think they could do, and I think it would be more in line with what this show has been about and how it might potentially end. But again, they could take many routes, whether it be him being taken to court and going to jail, him dying alone, or even Kim taking the fall for things and Gene still living on alone, having to deal with the consequences of that. Again though, I think the more psychologically damaging ending is one in which Jimmy doesn't deny that Saul is his true persona, and in turn spends his final moments of freedom in the office completely alone after everything we've seen. While Heisenberg was the mastermind that died his own way and accomplished what he wanted to, even in the face of severe loss, I think Saul Goodman will be the mastermind that is now alone and completely void of any chance of being Saul once again, even if he wants to be. But they were my thoughts and predictions for Better Call Saul Season 6, Episode 13. Peter Gould is writing and directing the final episode, and I can't wait to see how this legendary show all comes to an end. As I said, I think we are going to see that there's no running from what has caught up, and I think the Saul Gone title reflects that quite appropriately. I think Gene will be in a position where he can't be Saul anymore, even if he admits that he lives and breathes that identity, and the last few episodes have really signalled that. And while Kim had fun with Jimmy, the death of Howard and where she's at now tells us that she is all for coming clean and letting the truth have its day. I think that will reflect in this finale and really put this story to an end in the most appropriate way. But again, I'm ready to be completely wrong about most of this, and I can see them giving us an ending that still feels right yet unexpected. We'll have to see, but after the greatness of this show and Season 6, I have faith in them to bring it all to a satisfying end with whatever direction they go in. But what are your predictions and theories surrounding what happens in the final episode of Better Call Saul? Let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos on the final episodes of Better Call Saul Season 6, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.